This is all wrong. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction. How dare you!
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering. I hope you're having a wonderful week. I'll be live streaming a little bit later this afternoon, talking about the old, the whole Andy, no, Tim Pool saga that doesn't seem to go away, and Ethan and stuff like that. So I hope to see you here on the YouTube page, the main channel. And ultimately, there's a lot of news to cover today, and I want to start with a prediction I made yesterday that, of course, came true. Remember when I said the media would get angry at Battlefield 2042 because of the fan service? You know, they rolled out Battlefield 5 last year, or 2 years ago, Genderfield 5, or hashtag not my Battlefield, ensued, and ultimately the company told paying customers, don't like it, don't buy it. Well, that spectacularly backfired, and the game undersold by millions of copies. And by the way, this is the frustrating thing as a gamer who has very little time these days to play games. None of this had anything to do with the actual game. So this is what you would call a classic get woke, go broke scenario, where you have an ideological slant to your game, clearly in the marketing for the game, and you're willing to turn away millions of customers to get that point across. Customers that will never have even played your game, and maybe the game was great, but you told me to not buy it, and so I didn't buy the game. I think it was pretty easy for me, given I had limited time. If I had more free time, I might be more forgiving for this kind of stuff, because I would just go on and say, you know, whatever, I just want to play the game. But when I only have a few hours a week, it's super easy for me to just walk away from it. Now, this morning, the journalist class, the most protected class on the interwebs, decided to come together, probably in some secret Discord or whatever, and work the narrative. And how would they go after Battlefield 2042? Well, climate change? What? Every time one of these games comes out, the game's journalists who desperately want to be reporting about politics and Palestine and all this stuff, but they're stuck writing articles for people they hate. They get together every time there's a major release, and then they say, but is it political? And the topic they picked this year is climate change. Battlefield 2042 includes a climate apocalypse that refugee populations, but DICE claims they're purely gameplay reasons and aren't social commentary. The implication here by IGN is, of course, that that's not okay. You see Kotaku, and we'll get into some of these articles and the backlash too, but same article, Battlefield 2042 is not commentary on climate or refugees, says Dev Internet disagrees. No, they don't. No, actually, they don't. The players of this game love the Battlefield series and are extraordinarily happy to see it return to some fan service and what made the series great. Now, we can argue about how it's kind of becoming this hero-based game, which I don't know if I'm going to love. That's just to say I really haven't spent much time in games like Overwatch or Valorant, so, you know, maybe I would like it. I'm more used to just freewheeling like Call of Duty or something like that. But again, it's not the internet that disagrees, it's games journalists. And then perhaps the most triggered one yet, Alex Hearn, who is the UK technology editor at, you guessed it, The Guardian, puts out this hilarious tweet. It's so funny that we're still having this dance until you remember that the reason we're still having this dance is the proto-fascist hate group swept through the industry 7 years ago, which was never repudiated by any major figures and metastasized into a movement that won the U.S. presidency, or otherwise known as Yes, that's right. bringing out that old chestnut, the boogeyman. And of course, the replies are exactly what you would expect. Howling babies continue to shout at me. Noticeable, many of them are too young to have even been on the internet when the whole thing was actually happening. They've grown up with the aftershocks, a normal part of their social media, and view the idea about it wasn't always like it wasn't always like this as nonsense. Let's see. It's 2021. Pick a new boogeyman already. Before you sleep, make sure to check under your bed for those scary gamers. I mean, all of these, just getting hilarious backlash. And what happens? Of course, he blocks everybody because he's 20-ply soft. You see here, Alex, first time doing this, feels good. It's about some nuke app or whatever where I guess it lets you block everybody who liked a tweet that made fun of you. The tweet making fun of him was actually Memology tweet. Memology tweeting, journals can't let go, lol. And his response, blocking every single person that even dared to like a tweet. That's how soft they are. And this dude, mask in the profile photo, this dude has the audacity to call other people babies. And if we look at the IGN tweet, which is even more hilarious. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on. Hold on. Let's see how this is going. Can't we just end each other regardless of race and gender in video games? How are refugee populations used for gameplay purposes? Thank God. It's a game about a war set in 2042. I mean, what? A game about a war in the near future should have realistic depictions of what may have started them. I'm tired of the old Russia bad, Russia take over world trend. Well, a lot of people are. You know, I admit that, you know, I like something a little closer in timeline. It doesn't have to happen in real world politics. IGN has to make this statement on every game. They're not wrong. They're not wrong. IGN, remember, is famously, the entire staff had a meltdown when they put out a pro-Palestine fundraiser, which, by the way, I'm not going into whether or not I agree or disagree with that, just that not on a video game website would probably be where I'd want to put it. They got really butthurt when they got cucked by their editorial teams and their bosses took it down. And now they've been crying for weeks about how morale at IGN is at an all-time low. I would love to talk to an actual IGN employee about this. Like, I will give you your due and anonymity. But, like, you see peak satire, oh, good grief. I mean, all of these people. Imagine being a creator who constantly tells the world their art has nothing to say. AAA games are ridiculous. This is, and here's Alex again. The thing is, people online, the people that, like, freak out about these games, you know, why they need to be political and why they need to be saying something. It's not that they, just so we're clear, everybody, it's not that these Twitter weirdos want the video game to say something. They want them to say the right thing. You know what I mean? They want it to say, exactly what they want it to say. So let's say hypothetically, if Battlefield 2042 was addressing immigration, but saying that a massive influx of new citizens that need every type of medical and financial aid imaginable is not a great way to, you know, to run a country, allowing that. What if that was their point? Then what would they be doing? They would be saying, this game is, it's the result of Trumpism or something like that. So they don't just want the game to have a point. They want the game to have their point. And you see, here's Nathan Grayson. Just as the world keeps turning, at least until the climate apocalypse claims us all, so too has the latest video game announcement, but a new developer attempted denying their game might say something. Imagine a super huge mega corporation that displeased investors on their last launch, possibly wanting to avoid doing that again. I mean, who could have foreseen this? The newly announced Battlefield 2042 put some pretty charged ideas front and center. It's amidst the climate catastrophe, you know, more so than the popular video game we call life, which has led to an extremely precedented refugee crisis. Some refugees, known as no-pats, fight for the two remaining superpowers, United States and Russia. Despite all of this, designer Daniel Berlin rejected the idea the game is a social commentary. Quote, "It's definitely purely a multiplayer game for us," Berlin said in response to a question about whether or not the game contained social commentary. "The reason we decided to go down this route is so we could create a narrative with the world that could create through the eyes of no-pats. We wanted to get a more spectacle in there and more massive events happening. The setting fits that perfectly. It fits the scale. It gives us reasons to go over the world. It's all for gameplay reasons across the board." Exactly. Now, these weirdos, game journalists and people on Twitter, will contort themselves and twist and bend to try and say that, you know, it needs to be making a point. But guess what? Guess what happened last time they tried to make a point? They got completely destroyed by their customers. Some, for example, have pointed out that it's pretty insulting to imply that the climate refugees, based on a very real problem that has impacted over 20 million people, are present in a game setting only for gameplay purposes and spectacle. Well, they are. Others have taken aim at the root cause of the issue. It's not that developers aren't aware of the game's draw on real-world issues and in doing so unavoidably make statements. It's that they're afraid to admit it for fear of backlash from a very specific subset of fans. You mean most of them? You mean most fans? It seems blatantly apparent that the latest game, whose narrative is rooted in the impending collapse of real-world political institutions, is political. But bizarrely, the tactic works on some prospective players. In the lead-up to EA's Battlefield 2042 reveal event, it was not hard to find fans saying they hope it doesn't ruin the game with politics this time, referring primarily to Gender Field 5's inclusion of female soldiers. I like how Grayson completely minimizes that. It was so much more than just the female players. It was a pink-haired amputee woman. It was the COO or CCO of EA telling the customers to pound sand. It was so much more than that. Today, people in that camp reacted to Battlefield 2042's trailer with messages like, "Glad to see they learned their lesson," praising what they perceived to be a lack of politics. Others have waved away the idea that Battlefield 2042 could be in any way political because it's set in the future and draws the narrative and gameplay elements present in previous games like Battlefield 2142. The game is also set in a future ravaged by climate change, which led to large-scale battles. The fact that these real-world problems existed back then and clearly inspired developers at the time does not seem to have dawned on them. So why do you need it? Yeah, I mean, can it just be a game about ending people? Who cares? Right. That's what a real customer says. I mean, cope and seethe more, journos. The customer won. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.